Hey guys, it's Isaac. I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it and enjoy it, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much.
Okay. So
Okay.
it's recording now.
Yeah, I think so. So, Justin, earlier we were talking about Genesis, and this is not the first time we've done something together, but I wanted to ask you some questions, and I already know that my opinion is a little different than yours, and so I'm not looking to, like I mentioned, attack or edify. Really, just understand and also share.
Hmm.
So Genesis 1, and the verse that I shared was where it talks about the firmament and the waters that were below and the waters that were above, right? Because
Hmm.
my probing question was, if I said that we are underwater, would you believe me?
Yeah.
Right? So let me see here. Okay. So Genesis 1 verses um, there it is. 7. Actually, no. 6. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters." This is what's interesting. So the first thing that we see here is that water is there. Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So water just got divided.
Hmm.
And God made the firmament and did, excuse me, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. So first thing, there's waters. Then God made a firmament in the midst of the waters that divided the waters. And so then now he divided the waters that were under the firmament that from the waters that were above the firmament, and that was how it was. And then God called the firmament which divides both of the waters heaven.
Hmm.
And the evening and the morning were the second day. Then 9. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven," which heaven is what divides the bottom water from the top water. He said, "Let all the waters under the heaven," so this water, "be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And then God called the dry land earth, and so forth, and then went on creating. So we're not talking about anything else. We're just talking about this portion right here, where there was one water, then there was a firmament between the waters, then the water under the heaven, which is the space between the two waters. That one came into one place. This one wasn't spoken of anymore, right?
Hmm.
So okay. Now my question was, I think that we're still underwater.
Still. Okay.
I believe wholeheartedly that we're still underwater. And I think
Okay.
that the flood and all the other things is proof of that. But but I want to hear what you understand and why, or what shifted. Like, go ahead and explain, because you can speak now.
Okay. So as a Seventh-day Adventist, I always believe that, um, as you just stated, that the waters that was above was the water that created the canopy. Basically, the whole earth was surrounded by pretty much like a bubble of water, or like this layer of water, whether it was perhaps like ice just kind of floating up in space, or just literally like
Like it was.
droplets of water, but nevertheless it was a sheet of water covering the earth. But the flood happened, so there was water from the deep, or at least under the surface of the earth, and then also the windows of heaven came down or opened, and that water, I believe, was from the firmament, or at least the waters from the firmament.
Well, I
So
would say, if I could chime in,
mhm.
the waters above the firmament, because you remember the first thing we saw in Genesis was water. Then
Mhm.
there was a firmament that separated the water. Then the water beneath the firmament, which is the space between, came into one place.
Mhm.
So then, as you mentioned, when the flood happened, waters from the firmament came down, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
But okay, go for it.
so I guess the difference between me and you is that I believe all of the water came down. You still believe that some of it stayed up. And the reason why I believe that all of it came down is according to 2 Peter chapter 3, it says in verse 5, talking about like the scoffers in the last day, saying that, well, let's start from verse 4, give context. And it says, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. So this is what the scoffers, a lot of them are scholars, but the scoffers been saying, but they're wrong here. They think that everything has been the same from the beginning of the world when it's not. So then this is what he says is different. He says, verse 5, for this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was being overflowed with water perished. So
But the
the
heavens,
so then it says, remember, the key word is, or the key phrase is, heavens were of old. So heaven is firmament, or at least the expanse above us.
correct?
So
It's a
back then,
two waters.
yeah. So back then, this is how the heavens were. We were in the water. Of course, the earth was out of water, which is the land, and then also in the water, which is the water that was above the firmament. And then it says, whereby the world then was being overflowed with water perished. So the world was overflowed by the water that was above the firmament.
Yeah,
And
no, I agree 100%. So here, and even to drive your point further, there's a quote in Spirit of Prophecy that says that Satan himself feared for his life during the flood. He thought he was going to die.
exactly.
So then, and this is one of the things that I say to people who say God doesn't kill, like, because there's a theology out there that says God doesn't kill, like God has never killed someone.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not trying to say God is a murderer. God is not a murderer by any means, shape, or you know what I mean. But like, let's look at righteousness. Let's look at Israel's sons when their sister got raped and
Hmm.
what they did to that village. Was it wrong?
Well, it was wrong though.
It was
What
wrong.
what they did was wrong, but
but
that was
but
a bad example. But
but like the anyhow, God God repays people according to what they want. God is very fair, and he serves people what you want. I mean, even look at salvation. Salvation is a free gift if you so choose it.
uh-huh.
He doesn't make it expensive. He doesn't make it like how the world does things. He's very fair, and he gives you what you want. So if you like, Satan has, and even to the point of how lenient he is with Satan, I think all of us would have just like cut his head off. It wouldn't have been a hard decision for us, but
Hmm.
God is still giving him the patience and the room to work in our lives the way he does, and that's another conversation. But anyway, yeah, going back to the whole God doesn't kill and so forth, like in the flood where Satan thought he was going to die. I don't think Satan was the cause of the flood.
Yeah.
Satan couldn't think he was gonna die if he was the one, like he was God's hitman. God's like, hey Satan, I need to flood the earth, flood it for me. Do your
Hmm.
stuff. Because people say they look at the story in Job and go, well, Satan can bring down fire from heaven and Satan can do all these things. And it's like, sure he can, and the Bible tells us that he can. But let's also remember Satan has to check with God before he does anything. I mean, he's not in charge. Like, let's be real, right?
Hmm.
So going back to now with this whole thing about the waters and the waters, for me, if we go to Revelation, because there's a reason why I look at it the way that I look at it. Let me see if I can find the chapter.
Well, let's be clear. Are you flat Earth?
No, I think the Earth is round. For me, that makes the most sense in my
Sure, okay.
mind.
And you still okay? So you believe that the water above is still like around the Earth? This
Not around. No, that we're underwater. I'm gonna show you.
like
I
in the
think
whole
this
universe?
is really interesting. So, okay, and you know what? Let me just explain with my words. Lord help me. If you understand in heaven, on in God's in heaven, when we look at heaven, we understand there's so many things to talk about, but God is in the sanctuary, and in the sanctuary, he's sitting on a seat, sitting on a throne, sitting on something. That's what it says. But most of the time, he's seated down, and Christ at his right hand. Under his throne flows the river. There's a river of water that flows under his throne, right? And above his throne, there's a tree. There's a tree that's on both sides. This is now spirit of prophecy I'm adding in there, but there's a tree that meets up together on both sides, right? The tree of life. And that before his throne is what's called the sea of glass. That's, well, if you want me to go to the scripture,
Yeah, let's go there because
it's
I'm trying to see the connection. Sea of glass, sea of water.
sea of glass.
Yeah, glass, water, not quite the
We
same.
have the Caspian Sea, we have the Atlantic Ocean, we name seas after many things. We
Okay.
don't, I mean, it's called the sea of glass. I imagine, and you understand, we ascend. It says in Spirit of Prophecy, I can find the statements for you, but that for 7 days when Christ comes in early writings, we're going to be ascending to the sea of glass. We all stand on the sea of glass. It says that.
Okay. Yeah, let's look into that. Let me see.
Go, yeah, look into it. We look ascending to the sea of glass, or just sea of glass, ascending sea of glass. You
Okay.
have to search it. I can also search on my behalf as well if you want.
So I see here Revelation 4 verse 6.
Yeah, that's where we all talk about where we're standing on it in the Bible. But Sister White actually says when Christ comes back for 7 days, we're going to be ascending to the sea of glass. Ascending to, meaning we're below it.
Okay. All right. So here it says, before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal in the midst of the throne, and around about the throne were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. And then in Revelation 15 verse 2, and I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image and over his mark, over and over the number
Us.
of his name,
That's
stand on
us.
the sea of glass, having the harp of God.
Yeah, that's everybody. That's us.
So, so they were standing on the sea of glass, and I don't think people would stand on water.
Well, Jesus did.
Yeah, Jesus did,
Uh huh.
but
And so did Peter.
right.
So
So, but
the point, wait. So the point that I'm saying is that this Ellen White says, and we can pull it up. I can pull it up if you want me. Let me go to Google and just actually, yeah, I can pull up. It's in early writings, but ascending to the sea of glass. It's not me saying this. There it is. Early writings.
oh, I can't do too.
So it says, I don't know where I should start. Where should I start? Because I don't want to read the whole thing. Okay. This says redeemed takes 7 days. This is in a book called Heaven, page 47.2. But it's the quote is from Life Sketches of Ellen G. White, 66 and 67. It says, we all entered into the cloud together and were 7 days ascending to the sea of glass, when Jesus brought the crowns, and with his own right hand placed them on our heads. He gave us harps of gold, palms of victory. Here on the sea of glass, the 144,000 stood in a perfect square. And then it goes on to describe some of the other things and how we march from the sea of glass into the city. Because that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that the sanctuary is outside of the city. We have to walk into the city. The sea of glass is not in the city. God takes that mess, all the stuff that's happening on earth, that's not in his city. That mess is outside of that mess. He's not gonna, that's not in his city. Yeah.
Wait. Are you saying the sea of glass is not in the city of God?
Bro, it literally says, at angels, angels were all about us as we marched over the sea of glass to the gate of the city.
Yeah. Okay, but I just read in Revelation where it talks about the throne of God, how before his throne was a sea of glass,
Yeah,
and the
that's
cherubim.
yeah. His
Yeah,
throne is mobile. His throne moves. If you look in Daniel, it'll tell you that it's got all these wheels on it, wheels on wheels on wheels, and angels will fly him all over the place. His throne. Think about how the Pope moves. The Pope is copying God.
right. But then the other verse in Revelation it talks about the saints having the harps. They're in the city at this point, and it
Yeah,
says that
there's
they were
multiple
under.
scenes. In Revelation isn't just a static book. It's like a movie. It's like a
Hmm.
it's and it repeats. It's in. It's actually a very interesting book, but it follows a chiastic structure to where the climax of Revelation is 12 to 14 is like the peak, but
Hmm.
it's the same thing repeated multiple times. It's Hebrew poetry, but it's the truth.
Okay, so wait, the way you vision it is that wait, is the sea of glass a road to heaven?
No, it's so okay. Now you're gonna go to my mind. God is sitting on a throne, and there's water that flows out of under his throne. That's what
Is that
that's,
is that the sea of glass, or that's not?
that's a river. It's just
That's just
called.
water.
This is a
Okay.
river. It's a river that flows under God's throne. I don't know why the Bible says it's there, but it just says that. I mean, am I wrong that it says that?
Well, it says from, so it's not necessarily under, but okay, it's probably either way.
It
Okay.
starts at his throne, and he's got, dude, here's a rainbow above him. How do you think the rainbow is there? It's a reflection of the water, and he gave us the ability to have a rainbow. He shared that same thing with us on earth. Remember what the whole flood, like the flood was a really intimate time because God murked everybody. Like there was a lot of people that it's not a it's tough. It's a tough story, but like God is not to be messed with.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying the river is from underneath the throne of God.
Okay.
Okay. Then, all right. So now let's connect that to
The sea of glass
this.
before him, because I would imagine it would deposit somewhere and somewhere. And
Okay.
so,
So is the sea of glass the same as the river? Or is it water itself?
so for me, it says sea. And what everything that I've known on this planet as on Earth that says sea has been a body of water. In heaven, when something says tree, I would think on Earth when I look at a tree, I'm looking at a tree. In heaven, when it says anything that exists there, I would think if it says the same thing here on Earth, it's probably the same thing because it existed there before here. Heaven is the origin of everything. So if there's a sea of glass, if that's what they call it, they could call it the Sea of Ireland. They could call it the Sea of Dublin. They could call it the Sea of Heaven, but they call it a sea of glass. And like you mentioned, ice. I like that because there is truth to the fact that it is a sealed barrier. It's a barrier that stops anything from entering into that thing because there's a whole mess beneath it. See,
Okay.
when God made the earth, where was God? Where was Christ? So God spoke and things started happening, right? So how I look at it, it says that literally the earth is his footstool. His feet are the closest thing to our planet. Because if he's sitting on a throne and it's flowing out before him, and his feet are on that, if you got a footstool, his feet are the closest thing to that water.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's not that it's 100% absolutely necessary for anyone to think that, okay, yeah, we're literally underneath all this water, and then there's this barrier of a firmament that separates us from the water that gets us into heaven. Because Satan can't get up there anymore. We know that. Satan's blocked out, right? But how did Satan get up to heaven? He had to get access somewhere. So, and literally, Ellen White says, I read the quote that for 7 days we're going to be ascending to the sea of glass, meaning that we're below it.
Okay. Well, not necessarily.
You can't ascend to something that you're on, that you're above. It doesn't work that way. The word
Well, like, so for example, I can ascend to any planet, like any direction I leave from, right? If I was to go to, huh?
You're beneath it. You can't ascend to something that is above you, or that
Right.
is,
So all the planets is above us, no matter which direction we look on Earth. So that's the case for anything. But I wouldn't say the planet, like the moon, like we're under the moon in every sense. Like the moon could be on the west coast,
the moon rotates, right?
right?
So,
But we still have to ascend to it, no matter where it is. It's still, like still in one spot.
my bottle, perfect.
Uh-huh.
Sea of glass, and it's not good right now because I've been drinking out of it. But imagine that there was a space, this oxygen space. Imagine that there was still water above this water,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that somehow in between this water and this water is our universe.
Okay.
And that we're going to ascend for 7 days to the sea of glass and then enter into heaven. That's amazing. This is literally, this explains exactly what I'm thinking about.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So, all right. So I'm trying to understand how you view the universe. So,
Oh, I don't even, scientists, man, no, nope, threw it all away. Threw it all away. I don't need any. I mean, it's not that it's not valid, and I'm sure the speed of light and how far the sun is from the earth and all these things. Like, I'm not saying that it's not important to know those things. I think it's great, and it makes you think and so forth. However, I don't believe those men want me to really have a good relationship with God. I don't think that's their goal. I think I think most of the atheist priests that preach that scientific religion about atheism want you to think God is very far away from you, not close to you, not connected with you, it has nothing to do with you. And so they paint this picture of a world where you're alone, you come from slime, you're nothing, and so it's not, like I said, I'm speaking a little stronger than I probably should. It's not to say I throw it all away, but I just it what has it helped me with?
well, okay. So the universe can be extremely big, right? As they talk about as far as light years. Yeah. So then with that said, then you're suggesting, or at least how you're viewing the universe, that the water expands trillions of light years all around, us, right?
We're the water that's above. That's not even a thing. Like, okay, so this is where flat earthers will go crazy about the whole space travel and going to the moon and leaving the firmament and saying we've never been to the moon, or we've never gone to space. Like, bro, the Tower of Babel, they said it took 1 year to walk up and down. The Tower of Babel. This is in the Apocrypha and in other writings you can read.
Well, Josephus.
Yeah, Josephus, right? Yeah, and so, like, dude, that was a big humans, and those humans, we're not those humans, right? Those people were real smart, and they were able to do a lot of stuff. And I don't think that, yeah, that the firmament is like some sort of ice barrier that stops us from going above a certain, like, the universe, whatever we're experiencing, whatever God has given to us is bigger than anything we could ever imagine. Like, musk Elon Musk, I feel like, knows a lot because he's spending a lot of money to know some things, right? and at least to make us think that he knows things,
Uh-huh.
because he's putting satellites up there, literally charging governments to launch satellites. Like he's making a lot of money doing that.
Right.
So it's like, but we as the individuals, the goyim, we don't really have access to the information about all those other things, and it doesn't impact our lives in a big enough way where it really matters. Like,
Well, it does impact our theology to some degree. So if if
go
we
ahead.
see if we see that the universe is billions of light years, around us, and that there's trillions and trillions of planets, like the number is like the sand of the sea, then heaven is either far around us or in one place. Now, I take that heaven is like an island somewhere out there in, the Orion Nebula. I take it's in one location. It's not all around us,
Mhm.
but it's in this one place
Yes,
that you can go
it's
to.
a location. Yeah, I would agree with you that it's a location in this place, but I don't. I guess my mind really has this bottle. And there's a man I'd love you to meet. We can talk offline, and I'll shoot you a text message.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully, we got connect you guys together, because he's the one that kind of helped open my mind up to like realizing scientists don't care about me, and they don't want me to believe in God. The most scientists are funded, and they're funded by individuals that have goals. That's why they're funding the scientists to push their
Right. But
agendas.
you just go with what makes sense with the
No,
Bible.
I
So,
understand. So that's why I think that starting here, and then looking at what I see based on this versus, because dude, I really like, even go back to just basic education about finances or money. Like, when did they ever teach us anything that actually was real good for us?
right.
You know?
Well,
It's
I mean, they do. I mean,
base.
Jesus did say you have to learn from, you know, the I guess the world or men who worship Mammoth because,
I like how
sometimes they understand.
I like how John the Baptist and Jesus learned. Like John the Baptist learned in the wilderness. He went out and just suffered and just pain. That's how he learned. Jesus suffered pain. That's how he learned. So that's how, as men, it yeah, it's a teacher, it's a school. But anyhow, yeah, so that kind of explains a little bit my understanding about Genesis. There was another question that I wanted to ask you,
Hmm.
and there's someone brought this up to be about manifesting, and I wanted to ask you, we have not because we ask not. And if we ask, I think it's because we don't have what we want because we ask amiss. So, what's your thoughts on this? We have not because we ask not. And when we ask amiss. Like, in the sense of, because someone was saying, I said something and they're like, manifesting. I'm like, no, 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 dude. I'm not manifesting. I'm requesting.
Well, yeah, I don't see the big debate about that.
Well, not a debate, but just the sense of, I'm sure you've heard about manifesting.
Well, yeah, and I believe there's some truth to that. I mean, but it's the magical part is this idea that the universe just obeys you because you thought to do it or something. But really, it's just as a man thinketh, so is he. So when you think positive, then the chances of positive things happening goes up higher. That's
Mm,
just it. So just like how if you're playing sports, the more positive you are, the more likely you're going to win.
right. And the team, if
So
you believe, because if there's been so many teams I've been on, and you can tell when somebody just doesn't, they quit. They're still playing. They're still playing. They're still with you, but they quit. You can just feel the energy difference, right?
mhm,
That's
that's
interesting.
that's just that's just it. So I just think that it doesn't guarantee that you're going to win, but your chances goes up higher. So of course, the ones who are more positive are going to speak more about them getting what they wanted because they were thinking positive. That's just how it is. And then also, the Bible talks about there's time and chance happen to them all. So you have to accept that there is an X factor like that you can't predict. There's some things that are just coincidence, and it wasn't you or someone else manifesting it or wanting it to happen. Just something random happened. So
Can we
it's
blame
a
God?
mix.
Can we
It's
blame
really
God?
mixed.
Can we
Where sorry
can we blame God on that?
that he created like random stuff.
Dude, God, like the opportunities or the situations or the blessings, the random blessings. I love giving God credit for literally everything that happens that is like out of my control, that's in my favor. I have no one else to blame for that. I feel like there's a power that works on my behalf that lines things up for me in my favor without my control or my permission or my requests.
Well, then
I
that's not
also request,
random.
but that's how I look at it.
Hmm. True, true. I mean, yeah. Sometimes you can't tell the difference, but yeah, I mean, to stay safe, you might as well thank God. But if let's say something like a freak accident happened, where you know, I don't know, a metal pipe runs into the car and kills people,
Mercy.
it's we can't necessarily blame God for it.
Oh, right.
We can only blame God in the sense that He let it happen. But
Well,
like,
so when I said for the blessings, right? I talked about the blessings. When you talk about the pain now and the suffering, it's not about blame, right? Because like you mentioned, and this is not exactly where I thought that this conversation would go, but I'm happy that you're talking about this because it is something to discuss because a lot of people would do what you said. The pipe hits the car and people die and they blame God and has broad enough shoulders to where he does take that blame and he doesn't, say it wasn't me. Like he doesn't get on his knees and try to beg and show like it wasn't me. God just takes it, right?
mhm.
But it's we that's not the way, that's not the right perspective. God started a thing that's going, right? God
Mhm.
does have control, but if God was able to stop, or God if God stopped that pole from going into that vehicle and blah blah blah, God would literally have to go all the way back to the beginning when Satan started defecting and just chop his head off. Like that's how you stop that pole from happening in that bus. Sin is literally this tidal wave of Satan thousands of years ago making a mess. And so it's like
Mhm.
that's what the whole great controversy is about, is proving that God is loving and God is real and God is true, even though all these crazy things are happening, even though this world is not the way that God imagined it. He gave us all an escape. He gave us all a way out. He sent his son here to prove that he was the person that he said he was. He lived that life and he gives us access to that power, to that life. But yeah, like God God can't stop all the pain all the time. It's just, dude, he's doing so much already.
Right.
Already doing so much.
Well, how about this thought? This may be a strange thought, but even let's say there was no Satan, that Lucifer remained holy, and let's say we're still living in a world where everything is in harmony with God.
Okay.
I still believe that there would be room for, let's say, freak accidents.
Error. Yes. No, I agree.
Um,
I agree.
like like something random could
Error,
happen.
correct. Error and sin are different.
Yes. So I think those things can and probably did happen in heaven, where
Yes.
let's say,
The
a spaceship that they were building,
the
it went haywire, and
bro, angels are not perfect. The only things perfect are God and Jesus. Like
right,
and even Jesus said that he grew in his knowledge. In Proverbs, it even says that he was like daily before him been growing. Even Jesus says he grew.
exactly.
So, like, really, then Jesus said the only one good is God. But anyhow, I agree with you, bro. I agree with you 100%.
So on the other end, there may be some random good things that didn't directly come from God, and
Ah,
it was random, and it was literally random. where you might say, man, thank you, God. And God's like, well, I didn't actually do that. But
he was the angel. Maybe the angel had the
no,
thought.
nobody did it. Like, no, I mean, like nobody actually did it. So it wasn't like an angel did it. Nobody with an intelligent mind actually did it. It was just boom. It just happened. Let's say the wind blew and no one was predicting and calculating all this stuff. I mean, sure, God could, but no one is predicting how the wind is going to blow
You
that
know
will
what?
cause let's say a flower,
Yeah,
to grow in a certain way and then
I'll respect
fall.
you. I respect you. I'll respect your opinion on this and your viewpoint. But I'm gonna stick with my personality type is I'm a dreamer and I like to imagine. So I'm gonna stick with my imagination, thinking that like God is this chess master that has like if you make left turn, then these are the results that can happen if you take A, B, C, D. These are the results at the end of those ones. But if you take the right turn, these are you know what I mean? Like he's already kind of. And it's not to say that he has how do I look at this? Oh, you're making me think. It's not to say like I think his end all goal for every person, every one of us that's born, I think his end goal is heaven. His end goal for all of us is eternal life. I don't
Mhm.
think God has any room in his heart to see any of his creation like lost. I don't believe that at
Mhm.
all. And so at the end of the day, he wants to get us there, but there's like all these decisions we have to make. And there's the best ones and there's not the best ones. And I think we can all experience or we can all like relate to what happens when we make better decisions versus worse decisions. But yeah, man, I like to think that it says he knows the hairs on my head. Like so I have a friend that's been that helping me to look at God more, not to say more, because I don't want to say blasphemous things and I don't want to shape like no one needs to believe the way I believe. I don't want anyone to, I want everyone to find things out for themselves, right? That's where
Mhm.
I've come to in my own. I can respect anyone's opinions and I want to know why you believe what you believe because maybe you can help me understand something more. That's
Yeah.
that I really mean that. But yeah, I've come to really look at God in a way that like what he says is the truth. And if he doesn't say anything about it, probably don't need to know. Like not really gonna make the biggest difference about
Okay.
my life. But that so yeah, anyway, not trying to drag this on too long because I think we're getting to the point where we can wrap this up. But
Okay.
I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, man. You've actually made me think about things. That's why I just love talking to you. I really do.
Mhm.
In a way that's different. And you push you make your posts, your content, the stuff you put on Facebook really makes me think and I love how it engages other people's minds. Even the ones that come at you in a negative way,
Mhm.
at least they're thinking about something, right? At least,
Yeah.
at least their mind was like, it's like imagine a car, you just put it in reverse, where it's just like, "Er," like they at least jolted and was able to
Yeah.
yeah,
It's to stir the pot. Like this is the last question I asked was, does God do miracles in heaven?
yeah, I saw that.
And the reason why I asked that is because I'm like writing, my little narratives of the great controversy and so on.
Right.
And so I'm at the part where I'm explaining, like after they casted out all the angels, like the fallen angels, the emotional toll that the angels went through in building, like rebuilding heaven, because the war, it had to be a real devastating war for 1/3 of the angels. And we're talking about, let's
Yeah.
say there's 10 billion, 4 billion people
Mm.
out there just like wrecking havoc and just destroying buildings. Imagine if 1/3 of the world had a war with the 2/3. There would be just
It'd be that.
devastation everywhere.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to like picture that in the most realistic way. But then at the same time, I think most people when they would like try to grapple that idea, they would just press the easy button and say, "Oh, well, just God just like snapped his finger and everything was just made new." And
Well,
that's how they view heaven. They think that God just snaps his fingers all the time, and
yeah,
they
I
don't have to do any
know.
work.
Well, I mean, even why did it take 7 days to make the earth? Why didn't God do it in one word?
Well, that's still
Yeah,
well.
but,
See,
but
that's
no, but
still a miracle, though. But
no, I mean, miracle or not miracle, he literally was. Why did he come down and make Adam with his own hands in the sand? Why did he form that? And why did he breathe his own breath? Like people, bro, God works. Like, come on. He's not a genie. I think people have that Disney mindset. Like, if you read about what heaven is like and you read about what the angels are doing and how angels are flying to and fro, and God is getting information given to him by his people. God has a network. God is
mhm.
I mean, God is God because he is the most powerful. Like, anyway, this is a whole other thing that we can have another thing and talk about where we just really like flex on God. But like, yeah, dude.
God, see, that's the point. I think you're trying to pull out. I think the more useful word is God. God uses a process, and he doesn't always like he doesn't skip processes
Right,
for the sake of making things easy. And
right,
I think that's the one thing that a lot of Christians worship, and that's a false idol, which is the idol of easiness. They think that God just is by definition an easy being, when really he's
no,
complex and he enjoys hardship.
he works
Um,
hard. And dude, he rewards hard work.
exactly. So the idea that the angels, so this is the thing, they have, people have this limiter of the angelic society where they think that, oh, if it gets to the point of they start sweating, then God is going to start doing all the work. Or if they are like crying,
Energy to
God
sweat.
would never let them cry.
God gives you the energy to sweat.
Exactly. So that's the, so that point right there, that is the very, I guess, principle that I work upon, is that God doesn't do things for you when he gave you the power to do it.
Mm,
So if the angels have power to build a building, he's not going to build the building for them.
right.
So if heaven is destroyed, he's not going to like remake heaven when he gave them all the power to remake it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're dealing with like complex questions like, man, like how am I going to go through this? Like what about like what they're going through? My best friend is out there lost and all that stuff. If he gave them the complexity to actually deal with those questions, he's not going to like take that moment away from them where they develop like a character, like a story arc where they actually learn how to deal with these emotional turmoils and stuff. So I asked, like, are like, does God do miracles in heaven, so that people would think, okay, is God always doing miracles where they just ask, hey God, can I get some water, and then water just pops right there in front of them? No, they literally have to go fetch some water if if there's a mission to get some kind of, I don't know,
You know what,
fuel.
though? I bet you though, God is funny in the way that if they were really thirsty before they even asked, or as they asked for the water, like they could be, imagine they're on a spaceship or if they're traveling and all of a sudden there's just like a sign that pops up, water 40 miles. Or like,
Yeah.
I mean, like God can line things up. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I love these type of conversations because, at the end of the day, who can find out God? Who has the mind to figure out what that mind really is up to, right? And we've had some great minds, but I don't know anybody that has designed life and made it like what God has done. So I'll always have respect and honor for God. He is literally the OG.
Right.
But anyway, man, yeah, it was great chatting with you. And if you want to shout out or give your socials real quick before we end, I'm gonna put this on. Well, anyway, yeah, you can talk about your socials and then I'll just end.
Yeah, you can just find me on mostly Instagram as Adventist Hermes Justin Wilson, or probably you could still find me on as Adventist Hermes Justin Wilson 2 on for my YouTube, because number one got deleted. And just search up Adventist Hermes on Facebook so that you can quickly find me, because there's so many Justin Wilsons out in the Facebook world. So yeah. Anyway.
All right. Thank you, Justin.